Yo, what's up guys, it's Skills. In today's video we got you back with another Grand Cross video. So today is going to be about my top 5 favorite SR units and one honorable mention. So basically we're going to talk about one of the best SR units that you should be working on and slowly get them to UR as fast as you can. Now there are going to be some I think 1 or 2 units that you're going to have to basically use a UR unit for. I think it's I know SR Meliodas for sure will be one of them. I would say Bond would definitely be one that you have to UR. Yeah, I think those are the only 2 that you would have to UR for sure. But basically, we're going to talk about the top 5 units and then one honorable mention at the end on what units you should be getting to UR. Now, the game itself, when you progress in Global, you're going to be using some of these units even till the end of the game. Like, end game players are still using these kinds of units. So, personally, this is going to be my opinion, and hopefully you guys have a different opinion in the comments below. Let me know. If you guys agree with me, let me know. Of course, I'm just very curious on what you guys think as well. But personally, I'm gonna say this is my top 5, and we're gonna get started with the first one, which is SR Meliodas. So this blue Meliodas is of course one of the units that you will get at the beginning of the game. So he is one of the better units to have in story. Now, of course, everyone should know this by now. Green SSR Meliodas is of course the best for story mode. But actually, literally the game itself, Netmarble, Grand Cross themselves have literally said that this is one of the better units to have for the story mode. So the reason why is because he does have an actual full counter as well, and his full counter is not that bad actually. So he's really good because he can actually evade attacks, and he does a pretty good amount of damage from his stance. And a good thing about him is also that he has a really good passive. So this passive increases his crit chance by 30% at the start of the next turn if the hero doesn't take damage. So if you can have let's just say if you have Gotha. So red Gotha is a very good unit. He's probably the best unit in the game, just because he's such a great support unit. If you have him, he's a really good unit that can also debuff attacks. Basically, he steals attacks for enemies, so which is really good. So this card can actually be very useful from him. So if you have Gotha, or when Gotha does come out in the global version, this unit will probably be super good for that, and hopefully he does come out really soon, because that would be a really good unit to have. But he is good because another thing is that he does a lot of damage from his 3-star first skill, and weak point is a pretty big deal because he does 3 times the damage against debuffed enemies. So if you debuff an enemy, then you should do some really good damage from this card. And I've been thinking about showcasing him once I have a full good team with him and just see what he really is capable of. So I'll probably do that once I have a really good team. Hopefully you guys do want to see that. I know a lot of you guys have this SR Meliodas, of course you are. The story makes you do it, so hopefully you guys have used him and probably did some pretty good damage with him. But his, of course, full counter is a pretty good thing as well. It does a pretty decent amount of damage, so I keep it in mind. Like, he is still pretty decent for what he is. So his base stats are pretty good as well. He has a pretty decent amount of HP, and his pierce rate is at 10%, which isn't bad. His crit chance is at 20%. Of course, he can get more from his passive, which is basically what he is focused on. Then he has his associations with a lot of DNs. He has it with Elizabeth, so that's really good to know. And then his ultimate. So his ultimate should be really easy to get, especially to 6-6. So you can see there's a multiplier on GC database. So basically you're going to see that this is the 1 out of 6, 2, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, exactly how it goes. So the higher the multiplier, the better the damage, of course. So this one does 560% on his 1-6 and 840% on his 6-6. Which is really good because it inflicts Sever, which is going to be 2 times crit chance increase. So if his crit chance is currently at 20%, it should be 40%, the way that it should balance out. So he can do some pretty decent damage for sure. So I keep him in mind all the time. Now the other good thing about JC database, so I'll leave the link in the description below for the website. A very good website to use. This also recommends your gears. So for this SR Meliodas, GC database recommends that you do attack and defense, and then substats attack, defense, and HP. The same exact way I've been explaining in all my gear videos, which is really simple for that. So attack and defense for this unit, just because he is based off of doing a lot of attack, especially with crit chance, and then of course his full counter, which you want some defense so you don't lose this Meliodas in battle. So really good unit to have. Like I said, very, very good to run on story mode as well. Next unit is Bond. So this Bond is literally the best unit to have right now for story mode, just because his first skill is such a good skill to have. because he also inflicts a lot of damage, as well as he can take away ult gauges, and that's a big deal. And he's an SR unit that you have to UR in the story mode, so which is a really big deal. He does a pretty decent amount of damage from his ultimate as well, but personally I would say he's really good for just taking away ultimate gauges, and that's pretty much what I use him for. His passive is decent too. Increases lifesteal by 30% when using a skill when the hero's HP is below 50%. So if his HP is really low and you use, let's just say, the second undead physical, this card is actually pretty decent as well, just because he takes back all the health he receives, or all the damage he receives against him, he takes it back as health, which is really good. And then of course he can also evade an attack as his three-star skill, and then that's pretty good. Honestly, I think that's one of the better cards to have for normal use in the game right now. So he's good for PvP currently, and of course story mode. So I would have him for sure UR'd, which you have to have him, but run him on your team. He inflicts charge damage equal to 700% of attack on one enemy, and charge ignores defense, which is a big deal because there's going to be some units or some enemies that will be really good with their defense, so he can ignore all of that, which is a big deal. Now, GC Database also recommends attack and defense for this unit, as well as attack, defense, and HP as substats, which is a pretty big deal to have, which is a really normal base gear. So run that if you can. And then you have a lot of good things, like let's just say on his pierce rates. So his pierce rate's 10%, which isn't good. That's not good at all. If it was higher, then great. But you can have units like Blue King or Green King and so on. You can have these units as his sub partner to basically give him some extra boost, which is a pretty big deal as well. So you want to run these kinds of units to give him that boost for him. So that's going to be the next unit that I wanted to talk about, which you guys should know you're going to have to UR. Now the third unit, I personally really like this unit. Now a lot of people will give her a lot of trash about her being not the best for the Red Demon raid, but personally, if you want to make sure you have a unit that can finish off Red Demon without having to spend so much gold and gems and literally all the gear onto one unit like Slater, you can have this SR Elizabeth that can easily do the job as well, and which is a really good thing to have, because everyone should pull her and possibly get her to 6/6. Because if you think about it, this is an SR unit. You should eventually pull her many times, and then you can do some crazy damage, because this unit is insane on how much damage she can do when she stacks it up. So her first skill, as a 3-star skill, which you want to push for, she inflicts charge damage equal to 500% of attack on one enemy. What charge does is that it ignores defense. Red Demon is based on defense, so if you can ignore his defense and just do crazy damage, you're gonna literally like do hundreds and thousands of damage. So it's just really good for her. Now the good thing about this unit is her passive. So every passive in this game has a purpose. So this one increases basic stats by 10% at the start of the next turn if the hero doesn't take damage. So this is where the freeze comes along. This is where the Red Merlin comes along, the Gustav, and so on. Basically, those are where the freeze comes from. So you want to make sure you can use that. Or King. King also petrifies, which is a big deal because fossilization, the enemy can't move, and that's a pretty big deal because then this actual passive can stack, which is really good. So then her second attack. So her second attack isn't used that much, but it's basically good to have, because what it does as a 3-star is that it removes buffs from one enemy, and that's a pretty big thing because the Red Demon has a buff. He takes a stance where his defense is really high, but this unit of course ignores all that. But it also inflicts damage equal to 360% of attack, then disables buffs and debuffs for 2 turns, which is a huge deal going towards against Red Demon. So that's why she's one of the better units to definitely have for Red Demon. But everyone's going to say Red Slater because he is made for that event, and of course the Blue Bomb because they're made for that event. But she is a very good alternative as an SR unit. So her ultimate does insane damage, especially as a 6/6. So try to get her a 6/6 as fast as possible. But she cancels stances on one enemy and inflicts damage equal to 700% of attack. And cancel stances is basically going to be where they have. It's like how Meliodas has his full counter. That's a stance, so they can do something, or they have like a really big boost in defense. She's gonna basically get rid of that and just go straight through and just pierce them straight into damage. So which is a really good thing. And then of course she has associations with Meliodases, with Guild Thunders, Griamore, and Deanne, and Weinheit, I don't know how to say his name, but he's pretty cool too. So we're going to talk about him as well. But her attack and defense gear is basically what she needs. Substats, attack, defense, and HP. Big thing about this unit is definitely her attack. So make sure to work on that as quickly as possible. Now the next unit, Gale Thunder. Now I am going to say this, a lot of people have been messaging me on Twitter, on Discord, commenting on my videos. This unit, I understand how great he is, and I will tell you this right now, he is literally still end game unit useful, just because he has certain things that you want to have. And of course he's good for a specific raid. When it comes out later on, I'll make a video on it. But this unit is super good just because he does a huge boost with his second skill, and it's crazy because he's one of the better units for a support unit like this. So one good thing about his second skill is basically he increases attack of all allies by 60% for 2 turns, and that's a huge deal because you can do some crazy damage from other units that do like pierce rating, or if they do like some crit damages, they can do some insane attack like numbers, which is crazy. A good thing about him as well is also his passive. He increases all allies defense related stats by 30% in PvP, which is why a lot of people have been saying, why wasn't he on my PvP tier list for global. I personally didn't see him in the game whenever I was playing, so I based it off of that. Like, if you guys watched that video, I based it off of who I played against, and then I said in the comments below, let me know who you guys went against and where you would rank those cards that you saw. Everyone was putting Gale Thunder as SS tier or God tier, which I can agree with. He's pretty good for that. And his first skill attack as a 3-star, it inflicts rupture damage equal to 250% of attack on all enemies. So rupture is a 2 times damage against buffed enemies. So if you have an enemy that buffs themselves, that's going to be really good because he can do some pretty decent damage. But I don't really see this card being used that much. I don't really see even how much damage he really does. Even as a JP player from day 1, he still does like some kind of damage, but I wouldn't say he'd be really good for that damage. But as his ultimate though, pretty decent. He does some pretty decent damage from there. So if of course he's an SR unit, you should have him 6/6 ASAP as quickly as possible, because the amount of times you're going to summon him will be a lot. So which is really good. So he inflicts damage equal to 560% of attack on all enemies and shocks for 4 turns. So what shock does is an additional damage equal to 30% of damage dealt at the end of every turn. So it's basically like you got tased, and you're getting tased every turn, so which is really big deal. Attack and defense is a really big deal for him, or you could do HP and defense. You can run how this unit wants to, but you can see recommended usage. Gale Thunder is a versatile unit used in PvP, raids, and high-level PvE content. His main usage is to provide allies with 60% attack buff on rank 3 for PvE content, and for PvP is mainly seen on the sub slot for his passive. His ultimate skill also does a good chunk of damage at 6/6. Gale Thunder is considered one of the best SR units in the game, which is why I'm putting him in my top 5. So that's why I say he's really good to have. Now, substats, of course, for early game players, survivability of units should be prioritized before healing damage. Therefore, it is better to have Gale Thunder on HP and defense. As players transition into mid and late game with the help of better gears, Gale Thunder will be able to survive in raids even when you run him on attack and defense, which is why I'm saying you can switch on and off with units. That's why I want you guys to work on rare gear, at least to start off as a HP and defense, and then slowly work in attack and defense. That's basically how you want to go about it in the game. And you can work on attack and defense if you want. You can start going into the SSR gear now, just because you should be able to like build it up slowly. So just go into that when you can, and then you should be good for a unit like this because he is super good. And of course, associated with Hausers, with Elizabeths, with Hendrickson, which is really good. Grimoire, so he's going to give Anguilla. Going to get a pretty good boost from attack, defense, HP, crit resistance, not crit damage, but crit resistance as well, attack. So he's really good for that. Oh, and you have Vivian. So you have these units that can do some crazy damage for that. And his base stats, you can see his pierce rate's 15%, crit damage is 160%, crit chance is 15%. So that's not bad, but he's of course really good for PvP, PvE. He's a really good unit overall. But next unit, now this Gustav, he is literally the frozen god. He is just as good as the Merlin that literally just came out on global. So I personally said if you guys don't have this Gustav, then try getting him as well as get Merlin if possible. Merlin is a really good unit later on in the game as well. But this unit is super good because he freezes as well. Same kind of style, really big deal because you want to use him in Red Demon. He is going to be one of the better units to have because you can actually have him and then have one of the harder hitters and do some crazy damage, because this freeze, it will freeze one enemy and inflicts 200 additional damage on frozen target for 2 turns. But of course, when you hit the enemy, they lose their freeze, so which is a big deal, I guess, but you should be fine with just using that once and you should be really good. He also does a 3-star skill for his first attack, which is going to inflict 360% of attack on one enemy, and he disables recovery skills for 2 turns, which is pretty big because when you go on in the game, you'll see that the enemy will start getting their health back faster and faster, and it can get annoying. So it's like you never even touched them at one point. So then his passive is decreases all enemies' resistance by the value of the hero's pierce rate at the start of the battle. So it seems like if he has more pierce rate, then he will decrease all enemies' resistance by that value. So resistance is basically ignoring defense. So it's like defense-based related stats. So if you have more pierce rate, he's going to decrease the enemy's defense basically. So which is a pretty big deal. You definitely want to have that as well. His pierce rate's 30%, not bad. You know, it is what it is with that. I mean, he can be better, but whatever. He is an SR unit. Then you have Jericho with him. You also have Helbrums. You can also run. I think that's it. Okay. And then he's basically based on attack and defense. You want to have him as attack, pierce rate, defense, and HP substats. Whichever way you want to roll him, you can. However, you really get the luck to pull him like that. So hopefully you guys can do that really quick. But the next thing is his ultimate. He inflicts Spike, which is a damage equal to 350% of attack on all enemies, and Spike is a 2x crit damage increase, which is a pretty big deal because he can do some pretty decent damage against the red demon for sure. But that's basically what you want to use him for. So make him UR if possible. He would be good for that. Now the last unit. This unit, I thought about it and I was like, you know, this unit could be pretty good for sure. So this unit's passive is one of the better things to have. So he increases all allies pierce rate by 8% at the end of every turn. The limit is 5 times. So he can stack this 5 times. So if you have a unit who has like basically a really high pierce rate, this unit will even boost it up even more, which is a big deal. So a lot of people have been telling me that he is really good for PvP, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have tried him. So let me know in the comments below if you guys do agree with that, and you guys can say that. Like I would really want to try him out. So his first skill as a 3-star inflicts damage equal to 180% of attack on all enemies, and he disables attack skills, which is a pretty big deal. Like basically he's just like Gotha, where he disables attack skills, and I think the blue DN does that too, but she's good for that, or I think she's defense. I don't remember exactly, but one of them do that as well, which is a pretty big deal because then you can strategize on how much you're going to get attacked and pretty much play it safe from getting attacked. Then his second attack, which is going to be a 3-star, it's a debuff. So he removes stances from all enemies, inflicts damage equal to 180% of attack, then disables stance skills for 2 turns. Basically what that means is if you're fighting against a green Meliodas in PvP and he's about to full counter you, doing a 3-star of this death arrow will remove that stance, does some damage, and then he can't do a full counter for 2 turns, which is a pretty big deal. So I would say he's good to have, especially for PvP. And I think in some parts of the story mode you could technically use him, but I don't think I don't think a lot of characters use the actual stance part, but I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly on how the story mode goes. But anyways, for his ultimate, he inflicts pierce damage equal to 560% of attack on one enemy. Pierce rate is 3 times pierce rate increase, which his pierce rate is currently 20%, so he can multiply that by 3 times, which is a 60% boost, and then increases all allies pierce rate. I don't know if it boosts up himself too, but if it does, then that's really good because he's just insane with his pierce rating. So pretty good to know. And then of course try game to 6/6, which would be a big deal. Now his other thing is his recommended gear. So the thing is, this unit is a good AoE farmer, and his ultimate, which is or unique passive, works well with pierce comps, and it works on the sub slot too. So he can do attack and defense, and then substats of attack, defense, and HP. So you can run around with him as well. Then substats is HP and defense. His substats can be attack, defense, and HP. If he is used on the sub slot for pierce rate boost, run HP defense for the CC or CP boost. So good thing to know, especially for CP, which is a pretty big deal to run against, you know, story mode and so on, or PvP, gear PvP. You want to have higher CP so you can go first, which is a big deal. But that's pretty much those units. You can see he runs with Simon, Slater, Elizabeth, and Hugo and Jillian. Really good unit to have, at least to boost him up as an SR unit. Pretty good, honestly. But those are all the units. I wouldn't say he would be like a honorable mention, but I would say he is honorable mention just because he is a unit that you wouldn't use as much, but you can still use him currently. So he's good for PvP. So try to use him in there if you possibly can, and then just see if it's possible to work on him later on and see what he can do. But that's gonna do it for today's video, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the top 5 best SR units to work on currently in global. Hopefully you guys do realize that these units can be very helpful later on in the game as well. And of course, if you guys are new to the channel, if you guys haven't already, make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, guys. Thank you guys so much for 11,000 subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you guys. It's just crazy. But drop a like onto today's video. Comment down below if you guys agree with these SR units, or if you guys have a specific SR that you would recommend in your top 5 or in my top 5. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll try that out and see if they are worth it. But that's gonna do it for today's video, guys. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.